Data Topics.
Welcome to the
Datatopics podcast.
Hello and welcome to Datatopics Unplugged, your casual corner of the web where we discuss what's new in data every week, from llamas to AI licenses. Everything goes. Today is the 4th of November of 2024. My name is Murillo. I'll be hosting you today, joined by the one and only Bart.
Hi.
Woohoo! He's back. Actually, yeah, but I feel like for the people listening, I'm not sure if maybe yeah, it's been 2 episodes, right? That Bart hasn't been there. 2 released episodes, no?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So
And a recorded one.
and one was
It
recorded.
Still has to be released, right?
Indeed. So what's your absence? You want to explain yourself, mister?
I went to Crete to do an island in Greece to do a trail run, basically.
Nice. How was it?
It was fun.
Yeah. Beautiful
Beautiful island.
Did you how do you say your performance? No, performance, I don't know. How did you place in the run?
I was 8th place.
Ah, okay. So the 7th loser, basically. Well,
Exactly. It's
maybe
good
next time, Bart.
good definition,
We'll...
good definition.
Just kidding. That's kidding. How many people? 8. No.
9.
Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just jealous because I couldn't do it. If I'm being honest. So,
But it's really nice. Like it was like you can do a lot of elevation there. Like Crete goes from sea level to 2,500 meters.
wow.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that high actually.
Wow. But it's crazy, like, because you said, like, oh, it's really fun. No, what did you say in the beginning? How did you describe it? It's really nice.
It's a beautiful island.
No. You said it's really nice because you have a lot of elevation. But to me, that sounds like the opposite, It's like,
Oh, no,
fuck,
but
there's
like-
so much elevation. It's like, man.
It creates a beautiful scenery.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, they say that, no, never mind. I'm not going to go there. So cool. We also had Halloween last week.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything special?
I went trick-or-treating with the kids.
Nice.
What about you?
We went, it was a long weekend, right? So me and my wife, we rented a sleeper van. We went camping as well. So there was
Oh, I heard this, yeah.
you heard. We'll talk later about it. It was fun. It was a different experience. It was cool.
Where did you go?
In the German community of Belgium. So we didn't go far because also it was the first time. We were like, yeah, let's see how it goes. And so we rented a van with the Black Sheep van. So they have a lot of different ones, and you can just, like, the sleeper vans, they have like a kitchen, and some of them have like a shower and bathroom and stuff. So we just rented one and went to the German community.
It was good weather?
It was a bit like, it didn't rain.
No, exactly. It was good weather to camp.
I thought it was a bit cold. But I'm from Brazil, so what do I know? But yeah, it didn't rain. We were able to do some hikes.
For November in Belgium, it was good weather.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I think the best day was Sunday when it was sunny, but that's the day we're coming back. So it was like, okay. But but it was good.
Nice.
And yeah, cool. What do we have for today, Bart? I see here GPT Search. What is this about?
ChatGPT released a new functionality, which basically is a search functionality, right? Like how you would use Google.
Yeah.
You can now use ChatGPT, and you can basically, like, there's a small icon which you can click, and you're showing it on the screen now. It's like a globe with search next to it. If you click that, it will actually search the interwebs instead of just relying on its
Training weights.
Exactly. Yeah. What I understand is that they leverage Bing quite a lot to do this.
But it's all under Microsoft umbrella because Bing does that too, no?
Well, Bing is just a search engine.
But like it does also use LLMs behind and all these things, right?
Well, they now also have an AI version to that. Yeah.
Have you tried it?
I tried it over the weekend, and I guess it works kind of okay.
Okay, better than Google. Just recap that Google had the
like things that you would I think where you before you had a lot of hallucinations. Like if you have a specific search, like I want to know which shops are open on Sunday that also provide this service, like very specific.
Yeah.
Right. Like you used to have a huge amount of hallucinations. And now it just uses actual search results to come to an answer.
Yeah,
I actually used it like it was very random. Like when I tried it, it was just released, and I was looking for climbing areas in the Ardennes that had a lot of routes for that was suitable for kids. So very specific, right? Like if I would have done this before, I'm sure there would be a lot of hallucination.
Yeah.
And now it was quite okay. Quite okay.
Okay, that's good. Because
when you go to the page like that you're showing now, you also have like different type of widgets. Like sometimes they show a map and stuff like that, but I couldn't really reproduce that, to be honest. Like,
so yeah, for the people that are just listening, on the announcement page that we'll put on the show notes, they have some like tabs kinda. So they show different examples for weather, and then there's like icons for weather, stocks. So you have the classic time series plot thingy, sports with the game schedules, news, and maps. But you can get it to work.
Well, with the example search I did, I asked, can you show this on a map? And it didn't work, but maybe you need to have a specific prompt to show results on a map, right?
Yeah, I think one thing that I like using ChatGPT's for almost for like brainstorming. So actually, when we're camping, we're like, okay, what are like me and my wife? We have 2 dogs. It's a rainy day. Can you give me 20 ideas of things that we can do around here? And then like a lot of times it gives some hallucinations. But if I say 20, even if 10 are non-hallucinated, I think it's also good. But a lot of times they still say, I need to check with the local establishment to see if they accept dogs and all these things. And I think maybe this could be
this should be more.
Should be, yeah. So it's cool, really, really cool. Maybe also one thing I did use ChatGPT for, while we are on the ChatGPT topic. Last week I had a not an issue. I guess it was a bit of an issue. So it was about networking stuff, right? And I think I'm not super comfortable with networking and all these things. So I just kind of said, okay, there's an issue. And then someone, I'm just putting the conversation here. I'm not going to read through it all. But basically, there was an issue. Someone was trying to deploy, maybe before that, setting the scene. Someone was trying to deploy 2 applications in one VM. So it's just a VM on the cloud.
Okay.
A backend and front end. So like Fast API and Streamlit. Right.
Okay.
They're using Docker Compose, and when they're trying to deploy, both addresses were working. So you can access the documentation on the Fast API, you could access the Streamlit, but whenever they try to talk to each other, something was going wrong, and just this connection refused.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I had to kind of solve it, and I wasn't sure where to start, right? And I was like Googling stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT. So also as like a learning tool, right? So, and this is the chat that I was showing before. So then first thing I just kind of said, hey, you're an expert, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives me a blob about ports and addresses and all these things. There was some questions about like the port, because sometimes the port was specified and sometimes it wasn't. So then it explained a bit, some things like that. And then here it kind of explained exactly what I mentioned here with some dummy information, right? And then he gave me a whole bunch of examples, like of possible issues, right? And first thing they said is the course cross-origin resource sharing configuration, which I've heard a few times, but I never quite understood. And then they say firewall, group settings, protocol mismatch. And I was like, okay, this is probably not correct, but let's try this one, right? And then I tried some things, right? Like, for example, I try to go in the VM and curl the endpoints. And I said, well, that's working. Does that prove that it's coarse? And then it said, oh, actually, no, right? Because this only happens on the browser, blah, 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 blah. And then they also mentioned to go in the developer tools. I tried that. I couldn't see anything. But then I also went on the browser and I used basically the console stuff, right, to do a curl request.
Developer tools, yeah.
And then I got the CORS error. And then I said, does this confirm the issue? And then it was like, yes, this confirms the issue. So I was like, okay, now I need to, okay, how can I solve this now? And then he gave me instructions for the Fast API. You can do this, you can add middleware, blah, blah, blah. And it actually worked, right? And I just thought it was a bit of a mix, right? Like it did instruct me quite a bit, but I also had to use a bit of what I already knew to try to confirm the issue and then take steps there. And I thought, like, I was actually super happy. I don't think I would have been able to do it without something like ChatGPT to just give me ideas, to just bounce back, to just like rubber duck my way through it, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, more than rubber duck, really, you know. But yeah, I thought like it was really like, wow, like that's what it was, you know, and something
Cool.
that I don't know, it felt very magical, you know. It was just like, oh, okay, right. This is super cool. And I think it's also mixed a bit with like what I knew already and trying some different things to confirm. And I also think ChatGPT is really good for these tests that you can kind of verify yourself, right? And I think coding is a very good example of these things because it gives you something and you can try and either it will work or either it won't work, right? And I think for things like, I don't know, if you're sick and you ask ChatGPT, it's probably not a good example because you cannot verify the things that it's saying, right? So I think there's a big use case for, we talked about before about brainstorming, right? Like giving ideas, but also about these verifiable questions, right? That if it hallucinates, and also low stake a bit, right? So I think a doctor is also something that's high stakes. For coding, maybe it's lower stake. Like if ChatGPT gives me a command to drop a database, maybe I wouldn't just use it, right? I would do some more research. But I think for like low stakes thing that you can verify yourself, ChatGPT is a really good use case for.
Yeah, and especially like how you use it here, like very iteratively, right? Like not just
Exactly
generate me the answer because that is often wrong.
Yeah, indeed. But I feel like whenever you hit a wall, sometimes it's good to just kind of
to get a bit of a feedback. Like
And-
you would normally reach out to a colleague.
exactly
You can
working
with
for
a lower
remote
threshold.
exactly
Ask something like ChatGPT.
faster
or
response
Claude.
as well, right? So if you send a message, sometimes you have to wait.
But I think like how you pronounce, like how you describe it, a bit rubber ducking approach, that really helps. Yeah, that's valuable.
Indeed, and I think like even if the ChatGPT hallucinates and it gives you something way off, maybe that's something that is way off gives you an idea of something that is more relevant.
Maybe.
So, for example, when I was doing something with Rust, and then they said, "So this to traits," and I was like, that actually is not right. But maybe I should look more into the type system, and maybe this, and maybe that, And actually, it gave me a new perspective,
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, at least for me, I get so focused on one thing, like, okay, I think that's the problem. So how do I try to solve this, this, and this, and this, and this, and I couldn't get it, and then it's like, well, what if this is not the problem and that is the problem? And having something that just like a parrot that just says something helps me a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So quite happy with it. I think there's other AIs, right? Like find.com as well that gives more because it also searches the web, right? So that may be better depending on what you're trying to look for. Because I also think that this was very generic, right? It was like web standards and stuff like that. So
I think when you use it consciously to debug or something, it works. I think when it doesn't work is when you use it as a bit of a shortcut.
Yeah.
Like I last I think it was over the weekend, I was trying to adjust a liquid component, which is a Shopify component. It's in liquid. It's like something like JavaScript and HTML intermixed.
Yeah.
And I just asked ChatGPT to add a feature to it, change it, and it didn't work at all.
But you knew you knew that it wouldn't work when you read it.
I didn't read it. Like it was a big component. Like I just tried to copy paste it just to see, just as a test to see what it gives. It doesn't work at all. And it was way off. And then I tried it with Claude, and it was actually better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think the performance was better, but still not ready to go. But I think again, like if you do this a bit more consciously, not trying to have a shortcut, it works to very easily adjust something that you're not like. I never write liquid, right? Like this helps me to very quickly make adjustments by interactively asking stuff. And
true. I also think that I don't know how specific the liquid components are.
Well, the problem I think with liquid is that there's probably not a huge amount of open source liquid out there, right?
Exactly.
There is on Python. There is on Rust, but so it's also like what is in the training set, right?
Yeah, indeed. I also wonder these things, like if I'm asking something super specific or something that I feel like it's very new, maybe I don't ask ChatGPT because I know that I need the freshness, like the fresh information. But yeah, I think indeed it's kind of like knowing what to prompt where, right? But I think it's a valuable tool. But yeah, I wouldn't ask ChatGPT for something like Python 3.13, right? Because it's very new.
Well, with search you could do it, right?
That's true. With search you could do it. But actually, that's what I was using find.com for, right? Which is a bit the search. But I think find.com, I think they brand themselves as like for developers. Let's see.
Yeah, find.com to me is a bit like Perplexity, but then more for developers.
What do you mean perplexity for developers?
Like Perplexity, like it's just advanced search.
Yeah. But that's the thing. So here, I'm just showing the UI for find.com. You just put your question here, but it says from idea to product. But they also have like a playground in code, so it does feel more catered towards developers, right? So that's what I was using. But maybe it's like ChatGPT Search will actually fulfill that that need now, right?
Mm.
But yeah, maybe as I mentioned, Python 3.13. Python 3.13 is out since October 2024. So it's been a little while, but I don't think we got the opportunity to talk about it. It made some noise on the Python community for two main reasons, I would say. The free threaded mode and the just-in-time compiler. I think those two things, they made quite a bit of noise. PEP 703 and PEP 744. Why is this a big deal? Should I can I throw you under the bus, or should I just take a crack and then you can correct me?
Um, it's a big deal because it's probably should be a performance enhancer,
The free threaded.
or probably both.
Yeah, this is true both.
The free threaded is maybe a bit more specific because Python has always had a global interpreter lock, which means that if you do multi-threading, that you're basically limited to a single core.
Yeah. So basically, like the global interpreter lock basically locks objects, right? So if you have a value, so you can think of like a shoebox, right? There's something in that shoebox. And then if you have multiple processes trying to access or change what is in that box, then you have an issue of what to do. So the lock basically says, I have that box, no one else can touch it. But that also means that only one thing can run at a time. So yeah, Python is known for having this issue. And yeah, like there are workarounds, right? Like Python's written in C. Some people write some stuff in other languages that don't have this limitation and bind
But
it
it's
to
not
Python,
really
blah,
an
blah.
issue. Like it's a certain design choice which allows that to have very efficient garbage collection, and
Yeah, that's true.
that's but because of this, indeed, like you had this, well, you can discuss whether or not it was true threading or not, or that it was actually single threaded. But when you use multi-threading, it was scoped to a single core, and now with free threading, you can basically thread across multiple cores.
Yes.
And you had ways around this with multiprocessing and stuff like this, but this is the first time that we can do this. That should, especially for multi-threaded stuff, should speed stuff up.
And the multiprocessing that you mentioned, basically you start different Python processes,
yeah,
right? So basically each process will have its lock, but then you just run it in parallel, basically.
exactly,
right?
yeah, exactly. So this is today an option. It's not on by default. You need to enable it, and it's there. Let's see what it gives. I
Yeah.
think the big question is that there's no guarantees for backwards compatibility on all the libraries that were not set up. But I don't think the community today has a very good view on what the impact will be. This is a bit of a, let's see what it gives.
Yeah.
The benefits are more than
Yeah.
downsides.
Yeah, indeed. I did hear that just because free threaded mode is available doesn't mean that your code is compatible with it. So people need to change their code to keep these constraints in mind. And I also heard that this is not a final thing. Like it's still experimental, right? But I think Python has a yearly release cycle, kinda. So this is still like half baked, but it's a bit on purpose because they want people to get their hands on early, file bugs and all these things, right? So yeah, very cool. I haven't heard a statement, let's say a personal experience with the free threaded Python, but it looks cool. What about you? Do you know anyone that had tried this, or any first thoughts, experiments, disappointments, maybe?
I haven't tried it myself yet.
And do you know anyone that tried? Have you heard any statements? I don't know if statements is the right word, but like for any testimonials?
No,
No, yeah, not yet. Me neither.
aside from the online people.
And the just-in-time compiler, what is this?
It does code optimization just in time, and it should make sure that your code runs faster for certain scenarios. Again, that is also again not on by default. There might be backwards compatibility issues. Let's see.
Yeah, indeed.
To me, these things are most likely, both by the way, are a bit more suited for low-level libraries. You're probably not going to get much of a performance enhancement from like your typical use case like your typical use case is not a huge optimization algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Where this is really key, like these
Yeah.
these last minute enhancements.
Yeah. I also feel a bit like that. I feel
If
like
you're building a data pipeline, you're probably not going to benefit from this, right?
I think
But maybe the underlying libraries that you use do.
indeed, but I think that's a bit the Python is a slow language, blah blah blah. But the things that need to be fast, people figure out a way already to make it fast. I feel like machine learning is very compute hungry, right? But most of the libraries underneath they work with C++ or C, right? So yeah, but I agree. I mean, I think it's not bad, right? Like it's not. There's no downside. Let's say this is experimental. It's an option.
No, exactly.
So
If faster is better, right?
indeed, and I think it's a bit of an experiment. Like people say, like let's do this. Let's see what gives.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, let's see what gives. I think typing hints was a bit the same, right? They just kind of put it there, and then they all found these like very cool use cases for it. So I'm excited. And maybe just talking about JIT compilers. So just in time. I think the most famous one is a PyPy, right? Which basically takes your code and right before it runs, it will compile to something that is very specific. So an example is if you have x is 1, so basically it's a number, then the computer thinks it needs to allocate certain memory, and then afterwards you realize that it's 1.227 whatever, and then you have to allocate another place. If you can actually scan your code one time, you can allocate it once, and then it can make it faster and all these things. Well, I'm not an expert in these things, but that's how I understand them. But so I think it's cool. Let's see what gives as well, because I also think even PyPy has a lot of trade-offs, right? So that's what held people back from implementing in Python. But now
and PyPI is like an alternative Python implementation, right?
Indeed. So maybe I don't want to get too much into it, but like Python, I guess, is like the language syntax, right? The way you write code and how you understand it. And there are different implementations that try to comply to this. PyPy is one of them, but I'm not sure if it follows everything. Like, so I think the core is there, but maybe if like, I don't know, like a walrus operator, I'm not sure if it's supported, right? So there's some different implementation in the different languages.
And I think what the typical one that everybody uses if you just get started with Python is CPython.
CPython, that's by far the most popular. But that's written in C. But then this PyPy is written in RPython, I think, which is something that looks a lot like Python itself. There's also a Rust implementation of Python. There's a .NET implementation of Python. There are different ways, right? So basically, you write a program that reads a file that looks like a Python file, and then but that language underneath can be different things. Some other small things that I came across, Python 3.13, what didn't make the headlines. So a lot of people made a lot of noise about these things, but I thought, well, I'll get to it in a bit. Basically there were some changes to the PDB, right, which is the debugger thing, right? What does PDB stand for, actually? Completely forgot.
Sorry?
The PDB. I know it's for debugging, yeah. But basically, there were some issues on the REPL that made it nicer to work with PDB. Shutil, which is something to work with your file systems. There was also some fixes there, small concurrencies. What I wanted to bring here, the new annotation syntax allows comprehensions in lambda. So this is type annotations.
Okay.
Now, the annotation change that nobody asked for. So if you go here, you see class name. And now in classes, you can also add type hints, right? So not just functions. And you add it with this brackets syntax here. You have the star operator. And then on the function, you actually have a walrus operator thingy. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure actually if this is the type hint or is this the type hint. Anyways, for the people just listening, basically you have two classes definition nested, and then you have a whole bunch of names and a whole bunch of stuff with if statements, lambdas, walrus operators, and all that. And apparently, this is valid Python code now in Python 3.13. So,
and what is the hint that it gives me with this?
I have no idea, because again, so the type hints they've been relaxed to allow comprehensions and lambdas, basically.
Okay.
And actually, the bug ticket is exactly this example. They're like, "Oh, this doesn't work." And they're like, "Oh, this is a problem. We should fix it." And then they fix it. So I thought it was a bit, I think that's when
But you can basically say, if let's because you're just showing an example of a class, but if I understand you correctly, you can have a function, and that the output of the function is a lambda,
I think so.
so a generator.
I guess.
Okay.
I guess. Or maybe it's just to say like, or maybe just to say if you give this, then I'll give you that. Or
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what's the use
Not
case, to
sure
be
when I
honest.
would use it, because
I don't
like a
know either.
lambda is not really a type, right? Like it's something that generates.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not
things.
sure either.
Hmm.
I also came across this because of this Reddit post as well, and I think they also mentioned I don't think I have any use for this except typevar, which is pretty sweet, but it's a pity that the person read blah, blah, blah. But I think he's also a good example of
Okay.
it starts to add more things to your brain, right? Like to understand this, you're probably gonna have more of a headache than if you just didn't add types at all,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, they're making it pretty flexible. So hope it doesn't get as far. I don't see this in any code base, but it's something that is there today. Alrighty. Maybe something quickly as well that I also saw talking about Python 3.13. We talked about UV a lot in the past. I saw this on LinkedIn. So Sebastian Ramirez, the guy from Fast API, he mentioned now that UV support dependency groups. But what I wanted to just highlight is that the PEP was accepted on the 10th of October, and 16 days afterwards, it was available in UV. So I guess it's like my first thought is like UV is really trying to be almost a synonym to Python standards, right? So everything that gets accepted, they'll make a push to add it there, which actually I think is it's a nice way to go in a way. You know, like if you become the Python standard, then I think it's pretty like you're not like
Hmm.
no one's gonna accuse you for being too opinionated, right? Because you're just following the community guidelines, really. So
And what are dependency groups? This definition.
so I think it's like if you have normally you have the dependencies and you have the dev dependencies, but then you can have something like test dependencies. You can have something like
And that was already there, right? But
for UV, I don't think so. And there was no standard. So for example, Poetry implemented it, but
okay, there was no standard.
there was
Maybe
no
that is
standards.
the
Exactly.
PEP. No, the
Exactly.
finalize it.
So the PEP was
Okay,
accepted.
okay. Because
And
you this already existed, huh? Like you could have like this library with the Postgres backend, like for example, like and instead of the Postgres, I want to use the DB backend.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
And
this
now there is a formal definition of
Yeah.
dependency groups.
So I think it existed already. Indeed, many tools implemented because there was a need, but the community didn't agree on what to do. Right?
Okay.
Maybe something on that lines. And I feel like I'm hijacking the whole pod. We'll get back to your topics part. Sorry. One thing that Python does a lot, for example, are these log files.
Mhm.
Right? Requirements of TXT and all these things. But turns out that actually there's no convention about this, right? Even requirements of TXT is something that someone just did and everyone just kind of did it as well. But it's not a PEP. It's not like something quote unquote accepted by Python, right? One thing that it was shared in our Slack, it was a while ago as well that it was shared. There was another PEP, and actually let's see if this is it was already rejected, huh? File format to list dependencies for reproducibility for an application. So basically a log file, right? Is this the one actually superseded by? No, maybe this one. Yeah, it's a draft. Basically, there's a lot of attempts to make this log file, well, a standard for a log file.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest beef I have with UV because they do have a log file, but that if you use the UV log file, you're stuck with UV. If you read the poetry, then you're stuck with poetry. If you're stuck with Rhino, because it's requirements of TXT, it's the standard, right? But I do feel like if there is a block file format and UV adopts it, and other tools start to adopt it, then I would have no reason to not go for UV, for example. That's the only, but it's not even UV's fault in a way, right? So yeah, there's a lot of tries for this. And one thing I thought it was funny in a way is that I went through the discussions, the Python discussions, and they actually reached out to Poetry to talk about this proposal. And Poetry already said from the beginning, like, we're not going to support this because the way we've set up our tool is too different and we cannot make any changes now.
Yeah.
So Poetry, I think it got really popular because it was one of the first ones, but at the same time, I think it made it very hard to change because they built on top of that. And I do feel like poetry is being left behind more and more because they don't comply to the standards. Like the pipe project Atomo from poetry is not standards. Lockfile, they wouldn't be able to adopt it, right? So
Well, it's a design choice, right? Like they want to be
yeah, that's true.
remain somewhat backwards compatible.
Yes,
I mean, they can say fuck everything. Like from now on, we do it a different way, right? Like they could say it,
that's true.
but like there's also some value in the maturity that there is stability, right?
Yeah, but I also
Because most likely, if you use UV today for a production project, and you look, you want to upgrade it next year, there's probably not going to be an easy upgrade path. But
yeah, that's true.
But poetry probably will have.
Yes, that's true. But at the same time, so I mean, I fully agree. The only thing I have a bit of
And the thing is, like, none of these things matter when it's your personal pet project, right?
Yeah.
You don't care about these things.
Yeah,
But from the moment that you build something for a production environment, you want to have some stability in terms of years, not weeks.
yeah, I think the issue for me is when you take that a bit too far. So I do think there's some changes. I do think poetry should have had a breaking change by now. The reason why I say this, like poetry, they used to have like dependencies and dev dependencies, and then they also implemented group dependencies. But then dev dependencies became a group, and then I see a lot of pipe project Atomo that has two poetry sections, one for dev dash dependencies, and then one dot groups dot dev.
Yeah,
And that's because like people update the tool in the middle, but like the actual like I guess for me the thing is like they don't want to make it a breaking change, so they just kind of keep adding stuff to it.
But I'm not even debating that poetry is good or bad, or like I don't like it's yet another packaging tool. But like there are two sides to this coin, and to being fast and agile. Like a Pepper's release, and 16 days later, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Like you can question like how good were these reviews? Like how sure are we of this implementation? Like how clear was this implementation? Is
Yeah.
it something that you can do one-to-one, or do you need to have some discussions about how the standard is actually implemented? Like there's the pros and cons to being very fast versus very stable.
No, that's true. That's true. I guess for me, the main my main point was, I think it's good to have backwards compatibility, but I also think you shouldn't. I think there should be a limit to it, right? Like if you want to change the API, there should be a breaking change, and you shouldn't just support two different versions of the same API just so you don't make things breaking changes, right? So, but I agree, it's always a trade-off. It's always a trade-off. Pum pum. What else? What else is new? Maybe back to the AI stuff, Bart.
What AI stuff?
Meta Llama training to be bigger than ever. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, there was an article on Wired the last week.
Yes.
That said that actually Meta today has the biggest server park. I'm not sure if that actually directly translates to a server park, but at least the most amount of resources to do training of their Llama model versus their competitors. Like the most notable, of course, being OpenAI. But so the resource that Meta today has available is the most of all the big ones, which questions a bit like how does the ecosystem look like? I think a year ago everybody thought Llama was very cool, but no one really took it really seriously as a competitor.
Yeah.
Today the performance has become really good.
Yeah.
You see it being used in the industry, in the community a lot, because it's way more open. You can build upon on top of it. So I'm wondering what Meta's position will be like 2 years from now.
I'm also wondering what's the end game here, because Meta, are they profiting from these models and how much? Because the models are open source. Well, maybe we can talk a bit about that in a bit, but like the weights are available, and I think the only restraint is that as long as you're not competing with Meta, you can use them for whatever you want, kind of.
Well, there are some limitations on there in terms of number of users and stuff like that.
Okay,
I think, yeah.
But it's very permissive.
It's very permissive.
Yeah. And So I'm assuming they don't make a lot of money from these models. But if they have the largest CPU, GPU rack, there's probably a lot of investment, right? And is it just to train the models, or is it to also use it in the meta products?
Probably both, right?
Yeah.
Probably both. I like for me it's hard to like they have a lot of features. I think there is now a model. I don't think it's available in Europe actually, but in WhatsApp as well.
Mhm.
There's an AI model available. We don't know how it is being used behind the scenes, for example, to optimize ads and stuff like that. We don't know.
Yeah.
Meta's very much driven on ads as well. With all the resources they have available, I could see them at some point providing a service, a
Yeah.
managed service for their LLM. Let's see. They're still also very much on the augmented reality side. I would see something like this generative AI also playing a role there.
Yeah. True.
So let's.
But I think it's like, for me, this news puts me a bit on the edge of my seat in a way, because I feel like there's something I'm missing. I feel like, yeah, maybe they will release some Gen AI for augmented reality, or yeah, maybe they'll release a proprietary model soon. But there's something that I feel like it's something's in motion that I don't see yet.
Let's see.
Let's see.
I think it's always a bit difficult with Meta. Like they did a lot of the VR stuff, the AR stuff, and like like they invested more versus what the result is today. I think that is everybody is thinking at the same time. Like if anyone is going to pull off AR in the near future, it's probably going to be Meta.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Do you think there is a future for AR?
I think yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think the question is like, how will it look like, and what kind of devices, what kind of peripherals. But I think it's just waiting for it to be available.
And do you think, and what kind of, who's the classical user of this? Do you think it's more for entertainment? Do you think there is a business, like in terms of like working people to use? Because I also saw like the Apple Vision, they had like a huge screen on the wall, and they had this and they had that. But where do you see that AR fits there? If you, maybe for you, like what are the things that you say, yeah, AI would be a good use case for this thing that I'm doing today?
AR, you mean?
Yeah.
AI. I don't see myself using it.
Okay.
Today.
Yeah.
Especially not with the Apple Vision. I think the Apple Vision is way too.
It's clunky,
It's too much in my way.
Yeah.
I think it's very cool if you like these type of gadgets.
Yeah.
It's more.
Sure.
It has a very high gadget factor. I think with what's it called again? The glasses that were introduced recently by Meta.
The it's like the Ray-Ban thing, no?
Yeah, but also another one, which is it's more or less comparable to Apple, to Apple's Apple Vision
Pro, Orion, maybe Orion.
Yeah, but much more accessible. At the same time, you can debate, like it's not not very far off than the Google glasses that there were 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, to me, I don't know. I think like, yeah, so maybe I'm showing here on the screen for people just listening the Orion announcement, right?
I think what it wants you to do is to, and today the only way that we really have to do this as glasses is to add information to real life, right?
Yeah.
Like what you do already with if you have an Alexa home, if you have a smart home, these type of things, like you can interact in a digital way with your environment. What we today do not really have yet is like have these augmented things, like we have notifications, we have extra information popping up.
Yeah.
Are glasses the way? I don't know. Do I like them to be the way? Probably not. Like I think it's a privacy horror. But I do think we're going in that direction. I'm not sure how it will look like.
Yeah, I think.
And I think if there's a company that today has a huge amount of knowledge invested and capital invested in that, it's Meta.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like if this becomes a big deal tomorrow, they are the leading one, right? They even changed the company name to reflect more a bit this.
If tomorrow they can come up with contact lenses that look normal, that you don't see, and people wear them. I think you will see a huge
Yeah,
uptake,
yeah,
a huge
indeed,
uptake of these
indeed.
things.
But I also think it's interesting because to me, I always associate this with gaming, I guess. Like, so when I think of augmented reality, I think, okay, some gaming stuff, like for fun, right? That's also what we see today. Like when you have I mean, it's not really augmented reality, but like when you have the VR
Mhm.
headsets, it's more for like game-like environments, right?
For VR, yeah.
And yeah, I think they pretty much they are advertising this very much for the everyday user, for someone like business. So in the video here, there's like someone having a call and like floating in the middle of the living room, right?
But if you could have that with contact lenses,
But I feel like even if it's like a sleek glasses, I could buy that. I mean, these glasses right now for people that are just
they're
listening,
not sleek, eh?
they're not sleek. They're like
I
there's
mean, I think
a
even the Google Glass were better than this.
yeah, they
on the
look like
Orion.
there was a I saw on the Saturday Night Live, I think they were comparing this with the Minions, you know, the banana, you know.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? Yeah, it's really funny. Um, but yeah, they're a bit clunky. But this is much better than what we would see 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right? So, would you wear something like this, Alex? Because you wear glasses normally.
No, they're too clunky.
They're too clunky. Okay.
But if you could have, like, you're wearing glasses now, if this functionality would be
Yes,
possible in
then
your
I would.
glasses,
Yeah.
then you would wear it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but then maybe it's just a matter of time, right? Because, like, well,
But that's what I'm saying. Like this is not how it's gonna look like. But I think if anyone is ready to do this, it's meta.
yeah. But I do think, yeah, because Alex glasses for people that are just Alex not on the screen yet, but like you're just like a thin frame, right? And I think that's the main difference, right? Like the frame of this glass are super thick. So, but yeah, true. I guess to be seen what happens.
I think also with contact lenses, would you see where your eyes are looking? Would it look weird?
It's a good question.
Well, it doesn't exist in contact lenses today, so
No, but I
hard
guess
to
because
imagine
but the contact lenses, I guess, like it follows your eyes, right? Like you get stuck to your.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like because right now on the image you saw like on the top left there's this and the bottom there's this and you're looking here and you're doing there. But I guess if you just follows your eyes, it will always be fixed, right? To in your view pane, I guess it's hard to describe, right? Like what you look, it would always be
I
on
don't
the
know
top
if
corner.
this will ever be possible with contact lenses, but I think with the Orion, if I'm not mistaken, I think it projects it on your eyes actually. So it's
Oh.
only virtual that you're looking in and so that just for where your eyes look to how it gets projected.
Is it? I'm wondering if this is okay for the eyesight. If you just have stuff projecting your eyes.
Well, that's what's happening all day long, I guess.
Yeah, but like,
photons.
I always heard like, oh yeah, don't watch TV in the dark because it's bad for your eyesight and this and that.
But is it?
That's what I heard growing up. Huh? I'm not a.
That's what our moms told us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
true.
if your mom, if you're listening, did you lie to me, mom? Okay. To be seen. I think, yeah, could be very exciting though. I could buy into it if it didn't look clunky indeed. Maybe more on the AI tech, but this is from OpenAI actually, not from Meta. I saw this. This is experimental. It's called Swarm. Did you come across this at all, Bart?
No.
It's experimental / educational, so I guess not something to be picked up tomorrow. But basically, it's how do you say? Orchestrating agents, handoffs, and routines. So basically,
Oh, it's the agents talking against each other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so this is from OpenAI. So I think that's why it made a lot of noise,
Yeah.
right? OpenAI released a package, right, which is
Yeah.
not just a wrap around their models. Basically, it's so you can create multiple agents with different prompts, right? And then you can have them interacting with each other. So this is supposed to help that. So yeah, for example, the example they have here, the diagram is like, what's the weather in New York? And then there's a triage system and assistant. And then there's a function that says, well, transfer to weather assistant. And then you will go to the weather assistant. And then the weather assistant has a different set of prompts and expertise and functions and all these things. And it goes to 67 degrees. So I guess you can also think if you had a bot in the data roots webpage, for example. And then the first step is to know what kind of question are you asking. So classifying what these intents are. And then this is a way to do it. So I think it's something really cool. I think it's something that is much needed. But I wouldn't use it today just because they are saying that it's experimental and educational, right? So maybe just something for fun. But you did see something like this.
I think I read this on Reddit. There was
Ah,
a
okay.
discussion on this. Yeah.
Do you know if there are any other quote unquote competitors for this or no?
I think the question is a bit of what is the definition of multi-agent orchestration. There are definitely multiple frameworks that do multi-agent.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the interaction between those agents is a bit what the discussion is about.
Yeah.
Way like the definition.
True. So just something I wanted to share because one wise man once said that a library week keeps the mind at peak. And then maybe more on the AI or maybe RAG to be more specific. PG RAG or PGRAG.
Yeah, PG Rack. This was released by Neon, the company behind the managed Postgres database with
Serverless, right? That's the big.
Exactly, yeah, serverless. So they have a way to separate out storage and compute for Postgres. I use it a lot actually, Neon.
You like it?
I like it. And they the reason I know of this is that they sent an update mail, I think last week, where they said that they launched PG Rack, the PG Rack extension, and it's a Postgres extension, and it allows you to do big parts of the rack pipeline within Postgres.
Mm.
So you can so you already have some of these things. I think the most notable is PG Vector.
Yeah.
But it's just a vector database. It's just a way to hold vectors. With PGRAC, what you can actually do is that you can convert text like HTML, like Markdown, like these type of things to regular text. You can chunk it, and then you can also there's a local embedding model that they use, so you can immediately from that embed it in a vector space that you can then query, and all that in your Postgres database.
So it takes a step further from just a vector database. It also processes documents, chunks them, and retrieves them based on.
Exactly, yeah. Where with just a vector database or just vector storage, if you simplify it like that, it's just the storage of those vectors and the querying of those vectors.
Wow,
and this is also going to everything up to that storage, all from Postgres, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Also, they're showing some examples on how to use. So you can literally just put the prompt here, the query, right? Like, what is ... How does it work? And then you can actually in your select statement, embedding for query, and then you put press in the query. That's how I imagine it works. So looks pretty cool. You haven't tried this, I'm assuming.
I haven't tried it. No.
And Neon, is this anyone with like who can use this? Only if you're using Neon? Only if you're using Postgres?
If you're using Postgres, yeah. This is like a regular Postgres extension. Like
okay, because it's on the Neon docs. But then it's open source, I guess.
It's open source, yeah.
Is Neon open source as well? See GitHub thing here.
It's a good question. I know that they have open source parts of their implementation. I'm not sure if everything is open source, to be honest.
Or maybe are they source open? Which is a bit.
I think they're actually open source, but
they are open source.
I'm not really educated on this. It's been a long time. I looked into it a bit when it was just released, and that's why I'm quite sure that big parts of it are open source, but
really cool.
I'm not sure of the latest status.
And maybe I mentioned open source versus source open. I guess the main difference, the way I see, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, open source is something that is community driven, right? So people can contribute with code, and then it can get accepted and can get incorporated in their product. Source open is more like the code is there, but you can see, but it's not like you're not going to interact with it necessarily. You can report bugs, but like who builds it and who maintains it, it's more is that a good
I think it's a bit of a simplification. I think source available just means that you can look at the source.
Yeah.
And maybe you can do other stuff with it. Open source is a definition. It really depends on the license that you're using. And it's maybe a good segue into the open source initiative, which is, I think, the most well-known organization that has built a number of these open source licenses. And manages them, has discourse on them to let it evolve. And last week they actually, after I think more than a year of research, they released version 1.0 of the open source AI license.
So maybe why is this a big deal, and why is this different from just regular open source? What's the tricky thing?
Regular open source, what we're typically talking about is source code. So just written lines of source code, which is different from AI models, because an AI model typically has it has source code, it also has data, it has trained weights. It's much more. Let's say just with just the source code, you can't really speak about a model, because it needs to be trained, etc.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of chatter in the community about what are open source models and what not. I think Llama very much states that it's open source.
But I think they play a bit because, again, this is the first, as I know, the first open source AI definition.
Exactly.
And I think people before, because there was no third party that was saying what is open source, what is not. It was a bit of like anyone can say it's open source because,
Exactly. Well, and to be honest, like, it's not that OSI, the Open Source Initiative, has really like a legal standing, and like if you use the definition wrong, we're gonna sue you. They don't do this, right? But they try to create a community-wide consensus about what is open source.
And it has been used. These open source licenses have been used in legal settings as well.
Yeah, that definitely yes. But
so it has like a legal. It is a legal instrument as well. It's like it's not just
from the moment that you use a certain license.
Yeah,
there is a legal meaning to it. Yes, but it's not because I say what I do is open source.
Yeah.
That you can say, yeah, but you're not doing it. From the moment that I say my code is GPL,
and
I do something that is not GPL, that is not okay, right?
Indeed. So, but just to say, like these licenses, they are not just for show. It's like there is a very legal, practical. Exactly. There's an implication. There's a consequences. It has to be thought through. Like even the HashiCorp that we talked, like the OpenTofu HashiCorp. They changed licenses in the way that the source was still available, but they're restricting some things, and there was like very big legal implications.
But from the moment that you, let's say, implement the licenses, which is what HashiCorp did, I think it was it GPL? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
But from the moment that you implement it, there is an implication, like it has implications, right? But from the moment that you just like you don't care, but you just say I'm open source and you do whatever you want, like no one.
Yeah.
So this is interesting in the sense that I think when just browsing through this, I don't think Llama is open source.
Cool. Can we have the hot? I don't know if it's really hot take, but
hot.
I think the interesting things about this is that it says also way on how to. So you don't need to. You need to publish how you train it. I read that as the source code.
Okay.
You need to be very transparent on what data you used, how you acquired the data, if there are ways to acquire the data either for free or paid.
Okay.
So that even if you don't have access to the data set, that you can reproduce it with the right amount of efforts. And that typically, like these open source models, they have also their weights are included.
Yeah, what they mentioned here is parameters, right?
Yeah. There are the definition, and I don't have it exactly fresh in my head, but it says that users can freely use and reuse this without specific limitations. I think the limitation that Llama defines, and I don't know exactly how it is anymore, but it says something about from a certain amount of users you can't use this anymore, or you need to inquire. Like that is it's very bit of an arbitrary thing, right?
Yeah.
That is not something like you need to show that you use this as a base, right? Then you still everybody can use this.
Yeah.
But this is very arbitrary. Like from that moment onwards, you can't use this anymore, or you need to ask for permission.
Yeah, I see.
I think that falls out of the scope of this open source definition.
This is really cool, and I think it's much needed. I also think you mentioned that they've been for 1 year. You said they've been
something like that, yeah.
Which I also think is good. I think if you have something like this is, well, I think you need to take time to study and see how it is and release before releasing something, right? This is kind of like, it is a one-way door in a way, right? Like once you release there, you create expectations, and you have this to kind of go back or modify. This may not be as simple because people are going to build on top of this. So I also think it's nice to hear that it was a well thought, decision. And I do think it's much needed, right? Like you said, we see a lot of stuff from models and all these things. I think there are a lot of people that want to do as well, but they don't know exactly what to do. How to say, like, yeah, this is proper open source and this and that, kind of agree. So even if this is
a proper way to educate the community on what is
Indeed.
open source and what not, and also why not.
Indeed. And I think even if people don't fully agree, at least it gives a common ground to discuss these things.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So,
and that you can evolve from this.
Indeed. Really cool. Maybe I also saw here that we can endorse the open source AI definition. So look at that. Have quite a lot of companies here. Probable, this is the company now is behind Scikit-Learn, Mercado Libre, big retailer in South America, Bloomberg, Mozilla. Really cool. All right, and now maybe to something a bit lighter topic. Maybe still in the food for thought. Someone used V0 by Vercel and has some thoughts to share.
Yeah, just think it's cool.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
V0 by Vercel is like their like a Gen AI tool by Vercel that allows you to, with prompts, it generates basically sort of web components for you.
Yep.
I think it leans very much towards React components. And I actually, to be honest, I thought that you can only do React components. Maybe I can share my screen actually.
Okay, there we go.
Let me just
I'll let
see
you do
if
it.
that is possible. Only do React components. And I
Okay.
was playing with this over the weekend, and you can actually, but it's less performant. Like you can also say, no, this UI, it's fine. The React component looks cool, but please implement this with HTMX.
Ah,
Okay. And it does that to some extent as well.
but it's probably because it probably uses a base model that has some knowledge of HTMX, but it's probably fine-tuned on the.
Probably, I think
Because
so.
Vercel is the company behind Next.js,
Yeah,
which is also like, I don't know if they're built on top of React,
it's
but
built on top of React.
built on top of
Yeah.
React. So
it's we're looking at the page now, and it says, "What can I help you ship?" And just thinking around, also maybe generate a login page specifically geared towards a Brazilian guy
you're gonna say this. I was just waiting.
called Murilo. Make it super fancy and sleek. I haven't tried this yet, so I hope.
Is this free or paid?
Well, what I'm using now is free.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't
Brazilian login.
So it's generating. You see, Bem-vindo, Murilo. Faça login para continuar.
Can we get an applause? That was pretty good. Yes.
And then the email already holds like a placeholder, Murilo at exemplo.com. Yeah, there's a password place. There's an enter button.
How do you know it's password? It just says saying. How do you know what that means?
It's what I get it from the context. And it's very
no, but this
yellow
is...
with green.
Yeah.
It looks very Brazilian, right?
It looks very Brazilian. And like the Portuguese is perfect, huh? Bem-vindo, faça login.
And if you look just as the aesthetics, it looks really nice, right?
Yeah, the aesthetics. But like it does look very, I mean, I guess
it's very modern. Like a
yeah,
modern UI.
that's what I was gonna say. I feel like the style is very much like Vercel, which is the modern style, right? Like that's how you see the borders are round. There's a bit of shadow like on the background, right? Like the font, it looks sleek. It looks really cool.
think it also
it's TypeScript.
It's TypeScript. Well, you can. This is a TSX file, so it's TypeScript. You can, but if I ask it to just do it in JSX, it will do it.
It would do it.
Yeah. I think if you look
you
at
would
the
do it.
underlying code,
you say, yeah.
If you look at the underlying code and like the locations of that stuff, like it looks a bit also to be trained on Chat's CDN.
Yeah.
Which is also which is a typical, very modern, sleek looking component library.
And it has the same bit the principles, right? Like the shed CDN, from what I remember, is like a bit like that copy paste
Yeah, exactly.
philosophy,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is kind of
yeah,
what
yeah.
they're encouraging you to do here.
I'll make it even better. Huh? Make it even more
Sleek.
Brazilian.
Wow, it's gonna be like samba football,
Like
in the background.
Brazilian times 10.
Let's
see
see
what
what
it
it
gives.
does.
And now it starts making this very Brazilian.
Let's see what it does first. But one thing I also like, I think is interesting. Like the web page is in Portuguese.
Yeah.
But the logging is all in English as well. So I also, because one time I was writing something for like Portuguese, and
Olá, Murilo.
bem-vindo ao Samba Login. E-mail do jogador. Ah, this is so funny. You know what jogador is?
No.
It's like a football player. Like it's just
Okay.
player, right? But like email do jogador is like and then Murilo at Canarinho. Canarinho is like a canary, which is like a bird, which is the mascot of the Brazilian national football team. So it's like and then it says in the bottom, novo no samba, like new at samba, join us at blah, blah,
And
blah.
there's actually a palm tree, but you don't see it in the with the overlay.
We can hold on, we can change this. I think can we take this can we hold on, we can do this. Let's remove this. Yes, it's
that's the
yeah.
That's the
No,
conclusion of today.
It just becomes more stereotypical, right? It talks
Okay.
about samba, about football.
What is
He has
samba?
a-
What is samba? Just the
it's
dance.
the dance, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
just to dance, you know. So yeah, so it becomes more stereotypical. But yeah,
You want to one up this?
let's see how far. Let's see how
Make
racist
it
it will get.
1,000 times more Brazilian.
I wonder if at one point it would just say,
But would
It's
you
enough.
be more comfortable filling this in versus a regular?
"Ah, yeah, for
Login
sure,
form.
for sure."
You would like if you would
Credit card
if
information.
we
Yeah, I'll
do
do it
A/B
all.
testing.
Yeah.
Okay,
For sure.
Interesting.
I like how they said import coffee, sun, palm tree, music, umbrella, flag, feather. So you can already tell what it's gonna be.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
It's a lot of animations.
Yeah, they have a lot of animations also for people.
Benvido ao Carnaval de Login.
I see. They went with Carnival now.
What's the feather thing? Does it mean anything?
I'm not sure actually. Email do sambista. So usually you dance samba at Carnival. So that's why like bem-vindo ao Carnaval, sambista, folia is all like cair na folia. Wow, this is a novo no bloco. Oh, this is funny. So it means like new at the block because usually in Carnival you go like in little blocks, you know. So it's like this is
But-
great. There's a football
In the
emoji in the
background,
background
yeah.
as well.
But aside from the Brazilian stuff, it looks good, right?
It looks good.
Like with minimal effort, it looks good.
Yeah.
That's what I really liked. I didn't expect it to be so mature in terms of.
This almost makes me feel like I could do something like this,
Yeah.
right? But I'm also wondering how, because I guess like it's the same thing when you take a template and try to modify it, right? Like as soon as you try to get the two things to interact, I don't know how easy it will be to put everything together.
Well, to me,
nicely.
the challenge with Gen AI when it comes to visual stuff, and it would be a good test to do this here as well. But like, especially with images and videos and stuff, like it's like to generate something in the same style, so you have this consistency.
Yeah.
I think that is very hard. Like if you now say do a login page and then do a home page and then do that page.
What if you pass in as a input? Can you? Like say
Well, with
follow
images
something.
you can, and maybe with something
this,
like
yeah.
Vizier, it would be easier because a lot of this visual aspect is expressed in code. So
Exactly.
it's easier to.
So if
take
you say
over
like
than actual
follow on
images.
this style.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
In
Nice.
this same style, make a calendar application. Let's try it. I hope I don't reach my my limits, my credit limits.
But it's cool. It's also free. You said, right? This is on the free
Well,
tier?
what you're seeing now is all free, yeah. And it's super easy to use. It's like literally just copy paste this TSX file here. And when it also generates when I was doing it over the weekend with HTMX, it generates all the files. So it also generates multiple
you
files
can see
down
more.
too that you can all copy paste.
This is really cool. Yeah. No,
And
this
now we
is
see the calendar page. The same type of looks very similar. Same type of
also a lot of
animation.
animations, the same
Looks
background
very Brazilian.
from the.
Yeah, it's actually quite
Yeah.
consistent styling.
Oh wow! Look at that. They have the It looks great, huh?
Cool. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I'll make the same stylistic choices, but but like it's very impressive as a product, huh?
So yeah, I was excited about it when I tried it.
No, this is really cool. This is really cool. Maybe well, I don't do a lot of things like this, but if I ever have a use, maybe I'll give it a try, see how far I can get.
I'll stop the sharing.
Yeah. Do you think there's a danger of doing things like this because you don't understand the code necessarily, and then
I think not more than any other AI supported code generation.
yeah.
To be honest.
Okay. No, but this is really cool. I'm gonna jump on that chip. For
I
sure.
think the possibility, even, but like you said, it's not specifically with UIs. Like you can generate very shitty functional code now without knowing how you're doing it and without being opinionated on how stuff needs to be done at all, right?
Yeah, and I think
That's,
also like this for UIs, like if it looks well on the UI, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a mess underneath.
No.
You know, it's a bit. Yeah, I feel like there's always a bit of a danger, right? But yeah, that's the truth for.
I think
for
the challenge is very
everything.
much like with very limited effort, you can make something that appears very functional,
Yeah.
which might not do what you're expecting.
Yeah, I think the
And-
moment
and
there's a
that's-
bug or you need to change something.
Before, if you didn't have the knowledge, making something that appears to be very functional was very hard.
Yeah.
So that barrier was completely removed.
So I guess yeah. But I do think one use for ChatGPT is like when I say, I don't know, write a recursive function that does X and Y with this type of elements, and I kind of know what I want to do, but it's just a matter of saving the time for me to type it. So if you know what you want to do, I feel like for this maybe it's too big, but like if you know what you kind of want it to do and you can read the code and you understand and you can make changes, I think that's also valid. I think the issue is when you don't really know what's happening underneath. And then it's almost like a house of cards, right? Like if you need to change one thing later, if there's a bug or if I don't know, then kind of everything falls on you, right? So, but there are valid use cases for it. Alrighty, but really cool. I feel like covered quite a lot of stuff today. We did have a few more topics, but we can leave it for next week as well. We also have a long weekend ahead of us.
Ahead of us.
Yeah, right. Monday's also holiday.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize it. Again, a long weekend. We just came from a long weekend.
I know. That's why I think a lot of people are taking this week as a holiday, because then you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you take this week off, and then you have Saturday, Sunday, Monday off.
Why do you tell me this now?
I'll tell you earlier next time. I'm so sorry. So I'm assuming you don't have any plans.
No, not really. No.
Okay. What about you, Alex? Anything?
No, I also forgot.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know either. To be honest, I forgot. I was filling in my holidays, and then I saw like, oh yeah, actually, a lot of people are taking holidays. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, there's a long weekend. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, smart.
But yeah, I also feel like in the end of the year, because you have to use your holidays in the year cycle, right? In Belgium. So I also feel like either you plan well and then you allocate this time, or you just didn't use holidays throughout the year and then you have to use it at some point. Oh yeah, I can use it here.
Yeah.
Or you used it before and then you realize you don't have enough. So it's a bit.
True.
So okay, but cool. Then I guess I don't have anything planned either. But I didn't. Well, I kind of knew about this, but I think that's it. I think we can call it a pod. Stay warm, everyone. Thanks.
You have taste
See you next week.
in a way that's meaningful
Next
to
week
self
we have to think when we're gonna record it.
Hello,
Because Monday's a
I'm
holiday.
Bill Gates.
Just talk about it.
I would recommend TypeScript. Yeah, it writes a lot of code for me, and usually it's slightly wrong.
I'm reminded, incidentally, of Rust here.
Thus,
This
Cookie?
almost makes me happy that I didn't become a supermodel.
Kuber and Netix.
boy, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about large neural networks. It's really an honor to be here.
Rust.
Data topic.
Welcome to the data.
Welcome to the Data Topics podcast.